You stand at the precipice of an awakening you did not realize you needed. For too long, the quiet, corrosive force of lust has been the invisible programmer of your subconscious, shaping your decisions and dulling your ambition long before you were consciously aware of its influence. You mistook desire for a simple, fleeting emotion, a mild biological inconvenience triggered by external stimuli. This fundamental error is the very mechanism of your ongoing enslavement. The truth is far more unsettling and far more powerful in the deep psychological territories of the self. Lust is not an emotion, it is the shadow itself, an autonomous, unconscious demon following you into every room, every high-stakes conversation, and every ambitious moment, relentlessly manipulating your judgment when your attention drifts. Hold on, before we unlock the real power of semen retention. Hit that subscribe button and join our Telegram channel, link in description. We drop daily wisdom, success tools, and energy secrets only shared there. Don't watch from the sidelines, become part of the movement. Lust's true nature is not the act of seeking pleasure or the craving for physical bodies. These are merely the elaborate, deceptive disguises it wears. At its core, lust is the deeply entrenched, subconscious addiction to cheap, immediate stimulation, external validation, and momentary psychological escape from the difficult work of living. It is the insidious psychological short circuit that whispers a convincing lie, urging you to trade the immense, quiet power of your personal sovereignty or throne for the fleeting, trivial hit of instant gratification. Every single time you yield to the impulse, every time you leak your vital energy, every time you indulge in those small, readily available pleasures, you are not simply experiencing a moment of weakness. You are actively reinforcing and sculpting the identity of the weaker version of yourself. This is the version of you perpetually hungry for instant satisfaction instead of the patient construction of an empire. This is the man who defaults to prioritizing the shallow goal of seduction over the rigorous discipline of strategy. This is the part of you that would rather be desired by others than become truly dominant in your own right and master of your fate. The shadow, as psychological masters have taught, is composed of the untraded, rejected parts of your being that you refuse to acknowledge and bring into consciousness. They do not simply vanish, they eventually seize control of you from the dark, hidden depths. This is precisely the process lust is executing on millions of men in this very moment. You maintain the illusion of control, believing you are choosing the craving. But the shadow has already finalized the decision hours. Perhaps days before your conscious mind ever registered the impulse. Within your psychic landscape resides the lover archetype, an immense source of potential power. Meant to be your muse, the vibrant energy that renders you magnetic, deeply compelling, artistically driven, guided by a pursuit of beauty and motivated by profound connection. Yet, in the absence of ruthless discipline, this vital archetype quickly mutates into your catastrophic downfall. It becomes the Achilles heel, the systemic weakness that compels you to repeatedly betray the king, the governing, executive force within your soul. This is the root cause of the relentless cycle of self-sabotage, the collapse of discipline streaks, the sudden stall of business momentum, the erosion of ritual consistency, and the dramatic drop in training intensity. Lust is a gradual thief. It does not plunder your essence all at once. It steals from you one unguarded moment, one surrendered impulse, one leaked resource at a time, until you awaken to the chilling realization that you have lost the internal musculature required to simply endure boredom, to tolerate delayed gratification, or to face emotional flatness without immediately reaching for a dopamine hit. This is the silent, efficient mechanism by which the pursuit of transient pleasure quietly and systematically dethrones entire generations of men. The shadow thrives on invisibility, feeding on the rationalization that no harm is truly being done because the transgression is private and unseen. But the most profound violence lust commits is entirely internal, silent, invisible, and devastating. By continually giving in, you are quite literally carving deep, neurological grooves in your subconscious mind that normalize and institutionalize weakness as a fundamental lifestyle. Weakness stops being a failure and becomes a routine. It stops being a habit and becomes an identity. It stops being a flaw and becomes your core archetype. You cease to operate as the warrior, you abdicate the mantle of the king, and you seamlessly transition into the archetype of the addict. The most tragic stage of this decline is when you begin to fiercely defend the very cage you have constructed for yourself. Modern culture is ingeniously engineered to reinforce this condition. The entire system is built and optimized to keep you pathologically overstimulated while simultaneously ensuring you remain emotionally and psychologically underdeveloped. Stimulation is free and instant. Attention is constantly weaponized against your focus. Lust is rebranded and marketed as self-expression, as personal liberation, as harmless fun, and as a natural component of the male spirit. Yet, they never disclose the critical, governing truth. Lust is the primary psychological mechanism that actively prevents you from ever becoming a dangerous, sovereign, and fully self-governed force in the world. The world is not intimidated by a man who is simply seeking stimulation. The world is utterly terrified of the man who has achieved absolute, surgical control over his immense sexual and creative power. The moment of confrontation is upon you. The shadow is not a foe you can defeat by merely pretending it does not exist. That only grants it more power in the dark. Your only path to freedom is to face it directly, name its maneuvers, expose its tactics, and drag it violently into the full, unsparing light of consciousness. You must admit, with brutal honesty, that lust has been the quiet, systemic saboteur throughout your life. It is not the pleasure itself that is the enemy, but the unconscious, invisible chains attached to that pleasure. Every great, lasting transformation in a man's life begins with the moment he becomes unflinchingly honest about the nature and scale of his internal shadow. You cannot hope to become a ruler externally until you have utterly conquered the war raging internally. As it has been said, what you refuse to confront within yourself inevitably begins to rule your fate without. This is the precise reason you find yourself relapsing into the same debilitating cycles. The shadow is running a well-worn script, and you have yet to seize the pen back to begin writing your own destiny. The next, inevitable evolution of your being commences when you finally cease treating lust as mere entertainment and recognize it for what it truly is. Psychological warfare waged against your highest potential. Only at this critical juncture, this moment of recognition and commitment, can you reclaim the vital weapon, your sexual power, from the very force that once held your potential hostage. This script demands your complete and focused attention. Do not miss the following, most important section. We now descend into the true alchemy of disciplined desire. Venturing deep into the ancient and deliberately forgotten discipline of sexual transmutation, a principle once exclusively reserved for the highest echelons of monks, ascetics, legendary warriors, world-building kings, and epic-making creators. This is the line in the sand, the psychological barrier most men never manage to cross. This is where the external war gives way to the necessary, far more challenging war inward, and where you finally begin the profound and terrifying work of rewriting the very architecture of who you are. When you make the conscious, deliberate choice of retention, you are not engaging in a simple, restrictive act of merely choosing to stop releasing biological energy. You are making the infinitely more potent choice to stop leaking your identity. Every single wasted release, every instance of surrender, was a clear, unambiguous signal sent directly to your subconscious mind. A signal confirming that temporary pleasure mattered more than lasting power, that the immediate escape was preferable to long-term strategy, and that the fleeting, juvenile craving held more weight than your destiny. Retention, then, is not deprivation. It is the total, revolutionary reversal of that poisonous belief system. Retention is the crucible where you begin the intense labor of crafting and impressing a completely new story onto your brain about the powerful man you are actively becoming. This is the pivotal psychological movement where a man transitions decisively from the anxious, reactive posture of survival mode into the calm, proactive authority of kingdom mode. Your very body transforms from a liability, a vessel driven by base hunger, into an unyielding fortress of disciplined power. Your previously debilitating lust stops being a defining weakness and is deliberately hammered into a sharp, formidable blade of focus. You begin to understand, on a level that bypasses mere intellect, that this discipline is not a nebulous spiritual concept. It is a hard, measurable, neurological reality. The immediate, tangible effects begin to surface. Your focus becomes surgically intensified. Your capacity for patience stretches far beyond its former limits. Your confidence shifts from performative display to a quiet, unshakable grounding in mystery. Your physical presence begins to feel less like a mere vessel of hunger and more like a conduit of influence and intent. You gradually become the man who has no intrinsic need for external stimulation because your very presence, your focused and contained energy, becomes a dense, inescapable stimulation to the world around you. The great psychologist understood this inherently. When he articulated the concept of individuation, he was describing the exact, arduous process you are now purposefully stepping into. The necessary integration of all inner archetypes, the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover into one unified, coherent identity that is so internally sound it cannot be fractured or swayed by external forces, incentives, or pressures. The tragedy of the typical man is his fractured archetypes. His internal king screams for purpose and a grand mission, but his lover is chronically addicted to chaos and cheap validation. His warrior yearns for the iron clarity of discipline, but his internal magician, the mind, is perpetually fogged out, overwhelmed, and paralyzed by the constant deluge of They are internally split, psychically disorganized, and perpetually tribal to their loudest impulses, rather than sovereign to the sacred mandate of their highest mission. But the moment you commit to retention, the king is immediately restored to his rightful place as the governing archetype, the supreme executive function of your destiny. With the king's rule returned, the warrior finally has a clear, compelling reason to train with intensity. The magician gains the clarity necessary to strategically execute plans, and the lover of the wellspring of connection and charisma transformed from a tool of self-destruction into a profound, potent source of magnetism. Retention profoundly rearranges the entire psychic chain of command. It imposes an internal hierarchy, replacing the prior state of emotional chaos and scattered energy. Due to this radical internal reorganization, the way you are perceived and experienced by others, especially women, undergoes a palpable shift. This shift is not the result of trying to perform an air of false mystery. It is because you have become authentically mysterious. You are no longer broadcasting neediness into the social field. You are not signaling a desperate hunger. You are not exhibiting the parched thirst of the average man. You stop demonstrating a psychological vulnerability that is deeply rooted in craving and external approval. You rapidly become the rare man who is genuinely and fundamentally unimpressed by the usual levers of external validation. You transform into the gravitational center that people feel instinctively drawn toward, often without being able to articulate the mechanism of the attraction. The reason is simple and profound. Your powerful internal energy is no longer leaking outward through surrender. It is pressurizing and condensing inward, building immense density. You evolve from a beggar of attention into a powerful, silent gravitational field. Your physical presence becomes thick, grounded, and subtly, but undeniably, commanding. In every room you enter, people subconsciously register a profound truth. This man knows, with absolute certainty, who he is and what he is about. They may not possess the vocabulary of archetypes, shadow psychology, or transmutation, but their nervous system instantly and accurately recognizes when a man is no longer governed by the chaotic, manipulative force of lust. Understand this crucial distinction. Retention does not magically remove temptation from your life. Retention is the process that transforms temptation into potent, usable fuel. Temptation becomes the necessary resistance that actively forges the raw, unrefined metal of your internal muscle into hardened steel. Every solitary moment you hold your internal frame, every decisive choice you make to prioritize your mission over an impulse, every difficult night you sit with the internal pressure instead of collapsing into immediate relief. You are relentlessly training your entire psyche to prioritize the building of an empire over the gratification of a fragile ego. This discipline renders you mentally asymmetrical to the vast majority of other men. The average man loses the pivotal inner battle long before the outer war even has a chance to commence. He possesses a vanishingly small attention span, a negligible capacity for discipline, a crippling low tolerance for emotional weight, and zero capacity for delayed gratification. He is permanently reactive, an emotional casualty waiting to happen. But you, when you commit to retention, transcend this casualty state. You become proactively intentional, not reactively defensive. You cease the futile activity of chasing validation. You begin the powerful work of summoning reality to you. You stop trying to prove your worth to the world. You begin the unshakable act of embodying your worth. This strategic shift alone makes you virtually impossible to manipulate. No external incentive, no promise of pleasure holds greater, more persuasive power than the profound reward system you have activated internally. This is the psychological high ground where you become truly untouchable. Not because you have somehow achieved a state of impossible perfection, but because you are fundamentally and fully self-directed. You are no longer blown around like a feather by the winds of lust. You cannot be hijacked and brought down by the brief, artificial spike of dopamine. You are impervious to being seduced off your intended path by the world's endless illusions. You operate from a place of deep psychological neutrality, a state of being most men will never even conceptualize, let alone experience. You become fundamentally difficult to sway, impossible to rush, and immune to all forms of emotional bait. Retention is not the practice of a hermit fleeing the world. It is the necessary, foundational practice of a king preparing himself for his great, world-altering work. It is the iron-willed foundation upon which a man builds a legacy and a dynasty, not merely a fleeting lifestyle. You retain your power because a warrior preparing for conquest would never foolishly give away his vital fire before the battle has begun. If this video gave you real value, tap the thanks button. Your support helps me keep creating deeper content like this. Every thanks is a spark that keeps this mission alive. Your support means more than you know. You retain your energy because the future, powerful version of you deserves a man who never, under any circumstances, traded his ultimate destiny for a moment of low-value distraction. You retain your essence because the shadow of lust once claimed ownership of you, and now, finally, after a long and silent war, you own it completely.